what are some things that you can address when someone comes into you saying, I don't know what to do right now?
Yes, I think there are. I think midlife takes a lot of us by surprise, because it's something that everyone moves through midlife, and there's just so little information or guidance on it. I think that is changing. I think we're seeing more and more about midlife and perimenopause and menopause being talked about in the media, which is excellent. But just traditionally speaking, we don't really hear a lot about women and midlife. And, if you want to dig deep for a second, all of the research ever done on midlife was done on men, not on women. And it is a vastly different experience for a variety of reasons. And so I think a lot of women are surprised by the emotional changes that we experience in midlife, the emotional fluctuations. The dark cloud that can kind of descend. And if you've never had an inclination towards feeling down or depressed or sad, it can kind of be shocking that, oh my goodness, I'm having all of these negative thoughts and I'm doubting myself and all of my relationships, and where did this come from? I think we can be surprised at how anxiety inducing this stage of life is, again, for a variety of reasons. There's, internal changes going on, but there are so many external changes in our lives, in our relationships, in our families, both extended and immediate, in our careers. If you think about it, in this stage of life, there is not one single area of your life that is not impacted. Your body's impacted, your health is impacted. If you're married, your marriage is going to be impacted. If you have kids, your kids are rapidly changing. And so that relationship and also that role is impacted. If in your career, in this stage of life, there's a lot of changes. You may feel that you're on the fast track. You may feel plateaued and stagnant. In your extended family, there are going to be vast changes, which can be a combination of terribly sad and so much loss and incredibly frustrating. I'm sure we can all share stories, nightmare stories of extended family ruptures and conflict, related to the loss of a parent, settling of the estate, and all those things. And so they're just, I don't think that we're prepared for how much just the wheels can feel like they're coming off the car when we hit midlife. You just a lot, there are many other life stages that get a lot more airtime than midlife. And so I think we're better prepared for that. But yeah, I think we can be surprised by all that we experience in this season of life. Think of how many women women our age that never eat the pizza they like
Oh,
because
yeah.
their family likes pepperoni, sausage, and mushroom or whatever. And they never get the pizza they like because it is just like, it's fine. I can do pepperoni, sausage, and mushroom. It's fine. Meanwhile, the pizza of your dreams is like artichokes and spinach and feta cheese with a pesto sauce, and you never get that pizza, because yeah. And so you just lose touch with what it is that you really like and want and need. And to what you were saying there at the beginning, I do think, figuring out what we like, want, and need, that can kind of be fun, maybe even interesting. But where the hard work hits us is figuring out where we can get those needs met. And that does often involve some surrender, surrendering of expectations of who we want people to be in our life, surrendering expectations of who we think they are, and that practice of radical acceptance of, you are not capable or willing of being this person for me. And again, that doesn't mean that I have to end the relationship. It just means that I have to recalibrate my expectations. I can't, one of my favorite sayings is, are you going to the hardware store looking for bread? And I think a lot of women go to the hardware store looking for bread, and because they're like, I'm such a faithful customer to the hardware store, so don't you want to have bread for me? And but the hardware store doesn't sell bread. And it doesn't matter, how many times you talk to the manager. It doesn't matter the ruckus you throw. They are never going to sell bread. They sell a bunch of other things which are handy and neat, but they're never going to sell bread. And that's the case, I think, with a lot of our relationships that we think, well, if I love you and if I meet your needs and anticipate your needs, then surely you will love me back. And surely you will love me in that same way back. And you'll anticipate my needs. And I'll never have to tell you what I need. And you'll mind read me. And we'll just indirectly communicate for the rest of
Good
our
luck with
lives.
that fantasy because I don't know anybody who's ever had that happen.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. But I
yeah.
think a lot of us buy into the myth that if I do everything for you and take care of you, then you will love me back and meet my needs. And some people, again, are just unwilling or incapable of meeting certain needs. And we do have to have that hard reckoning with ourselves of, am I going to the hardware store looking for bread? Am I asking for something from this person that they are just not capable or willing to give me?
Radical acceptance is not an easy thing to do, especially when you've spent so many years thinking, I'm putting my heart and soul into this. At what point, what if you simply cannot accept that? What if you can't accept that the person, because I know for women in midlife, we kind of step into our own voice as we
Yes.
start to get older. And maybe what you accepted before, you no longer want to accept. What would you say to women in that instance?
I honestly think, relationally speaking, that is the midlife transition. It is that journey right there. It is recognizing I accepted this previously in my life for perhaps the last 2 or 3 decades of my life, and this behavior was fine, and I rationalized it, or I didn't even see it. I didn't it even register to me that maybe this wasn't great or healthy. But now I have on a new pair of glasses, and I see this behavior, I see this habit, I see this pattern of interaction with this person. I see it differently, and it is no longer acceptable to me. And that's where, that journey of awareness can be hard. That journey of awareness can be hard on our relationships because, you've done the waltz for 2 to 3 decades with certain people or more than that. And then you're like, whoa, I actually don't like the waltz. And then they're like, no, 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 but we're going to keep doing the waltz. And so, there's some headbutting there of shifting those relationships. And and I think there's also loss and grief there of the potential of maybe losing some connections that were built on those old habits and patterns. And that's just not who you are anymore, but you love that person. But can that person accept that that's not who you are anymore? So there's loss and grief that we have to feel as we move through that. But yes, related but separate, radical acceptance of this is who this person is, and they are not going to change. And for me to keep beating my head up against the wall, I'm the only one being injured. They are not being injured. A lot of our frustration that we feel in relationships is because needs aren't being met. And so, what are those needs that are not being met? I'm a big fan of having a plan. When we don't have a plan, we are more likely to react. And so then we're more likely to have those reactions that then we feel bad about, or we feel guilty about, or it just escalates the pattern of the relationship and we end up in greater conflict. And so I'm a big fan of having a plan. I'm a big fan of having a plan. So if you're going into a dinner, or we're coming up on the holidays, if you're going into the holidays and that this person that you're having dinner with or your family can just really activate you. They can light a match and pour gasoline in like no time. The best thing that you can do for yourself. You might choose to not go to the dinner, and that is your choice. But in the real world, I think, sorry, now I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent.
That's
But
good. That's fine. Yeah.
I think one of my complaints about social media and it's wonderful that we have so much about mental health and self-help on social media. That's great. But one of my complaints is that too often the advice we see about toxic relationships or boundaries is just leave, just leave, just leave. And yes, there are so many relationships in which we do need to leave. And the reality is there are so many relationships in which we either cannot leave or we don't want to leave. And we recognize that it's toxic. And so in the real world, you do have to figure out, okay, if I'm not able or I don't want to end this relationship, then how do I survive in the relationship? And so having that plan of, okay, what is it exactly that they do that can activate me? What are the signs that I am starting to escalate internally? My stomach starts to clench. I get hot. I start clenching my fist. I start to feel my heart starts to race, like really getting clear on what are the signs when I am starting to get flooded and triggered by this person. And then what am I going to do once that starts happening? Because removing ourselves from the situation is the best thing we can do to then lower that anxiety response. And so I'm going to say I need to go to the restroom, or I'm going to say I need to get up and check on the kids, or I'm going to go in the kitchen, right? And having a plan. And I think also kind of rewinding before that, having a plan of, okay, when I arrive, I'm going to talk to this person first. I think just having a plan for these isolated incidences can be extremely helpful when we are dealing with people that we find challenging and activating.